I was 10 the first year it happened. No cake. No candles. No happy birthday. Just another Tuesday where Mom was late from work, Dad was glued to the TV, and my sister was holed up in her room, blasting music. I remember sitting at the kitchen table, watching the clock, thinking, they must be planning something. Maybe a surprise later. Nothing came. At that age, I told myself they just forgot. People get busy. Next year would be different. It wasn't. Year after year, it was the same. My birthday would come and go like any other day, except I felt a little heavier inside. I'd see my friends post pictures of their parties, balloons, decorations, grinning parents, and I'd paste on a smile at school while telling them I didn't really care about birthdays. Truth was, I cared too much. By the time I turned 16, I stopped even hinting. No more leaving out catalogs open to things I wanted. No more accidentally mentioning what day it was. It hurt less to just not expect anything. My parents weren't cruel people. They remembered my sister's birthday every year without fail. I just didn't make the cut, I guess. The spare kid. When I moved out at 19, I figured the feeling would fade. But every birthday, like clockwork, there'd be silence. Maybe a belated text if I was lucky, something like "hope you had a good one." No call, no card. Last year, on my 28th, I sat in my apartment with a cheap grocery store cupcake, one candle stuck in the middle, and thought, why am I still letting them do this to me? It wasn't even about the gifts or the fuss. It was about the fact that in the people who raised me hierarchy, I ranked somewhere below the family dog. So I decided next year would be different. Not for them. For me. I started planning the birthday. The kind of celebration that would leave no room for, oops, forgot. I made a Pinterest board in January. By March, I had a guest list that did not include a single blood relative. Friends from work, neighbors, people from my trivia team, even the guy at the coffee shop who always remembered my order. I booked a rooftop venue with fairy lights and a view of the whole city. Catered food that was way too fancy for my budget, but absolutely worth it. I hired a photographer, not for keepsakes, but for proof. I wanted the night documented like it was a red carpet event. By July, I had my outfit. An emerald green suit that made me feel like $1,000,000, shiny black shoes, and a little gold crown just because I could. When the day finally came, I didn't tell my family. I woke up to the usual silence. No text, no call. Perfect. I spent the afternoon getting ready, a slow build of anticipation until I walked into that rooftop space and saw it. My party. My people. Tables covered in flowers. Music floating through the summer air. Everyone smiling like I was someone worth celebrating. And that night, it was magic. We danced until midnight, ate way too much, toasted with champagne while the skyline glittered. For once, I didn't feel like the kid nobody noticed. I felt chosen. The photographer sent me over 200 shots the next morning. I picked the best ones, me laughing with friends, me cutting a massive cake, me under a canopy of sparklers, and posted them all over social media with one caption. Best birthday ever. Thank you to everyone who made me feel seen. By lunch, my phone was blowing up. My sister, wait, yesterday was your birthday? Mom, why didn't you tell us? Dad, we would have done something if we'd known. Sure. After nearly 20 years of forgetting, I just kept posting pictures. Me and my friends. The cake. The rooftop at sunset. The more I shared, the more messages rolled in, from aunts, cousins, even old family friends. Each one some variation of, I had no idea, and we should celebrate together next time. Suddenly, everyone remembered my name. And that was only the beginning. I woke up the next morning with a champagne headache and a grin I couldn't wipe off. Not just because the party had been amazing, but because my phone was still buzzing like I'd just announced I'd won the lottery. People I hadn't spoken to in years were crawling out of the woodwork. Old classmates commented, "Wow, looks like a blast." Cousins who never once called me were demanding, "Hey, we should catch up." Even my dad left a comment on one of the rooftop pictures. Nice view. Where was this? I didn't reply. That was the beauty of it. I didn't know anyone an explanation. I'd already given them decades to remember me on their own. If it took a viral slideshow of me looking like I'd stepped out of a lifestyle magazine to jog their memory, that was on them. By noon, Mom called. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. "Why didn't you tell us?" she said, skipping hello entirely. "Tell you what, that you were having a party." "Oh," I said, sipping coffee. "I didn't think you'd be interested." She went quiet. and for a second I thought maybe she'd actually reflect. But then, that's ridiculous. Of course we'd be interested. Your family. I almost laughed. Funny. Didn't feel like it all these years. She tried to backpedal, talking about how busy they'd been, how they assumed I didn't care about birthdays anymore. I let her ramble, then cut her off. Mom, it's fine. Really, I had exactly the birthday I wanted. That was true. But I also knew the subtext would sting, without you. By that evening, my Facebook post had nearly 200 likes. Friends tagged themselves in the photos, adding comments like, "Best night ever," and "Already can't wait for next year." I started getting texts from people who clearly just wanted an invite to whatever I'd throw next. And then my sister sent me one that made me pause. Honestly, I didn't realize how bad it was for you growing up. I'm sorry. I should have noticed. It wasn't an apology for my parents, but it was the first time anyone in the family had acknowledged it at all. I stared at the screen, feeling this strange mix of vindication and sadness. I typed back, "Thanks. That means a lot," and left it at that. Because the truth was, the party hadn't just been a middle finger to my family. It had been a reset button for me. Proof that I could create my own traditions, my own joy, without waiting for someone else to hand it to me. Still, I couldn't help noticing the shift. A week later, Dad texted me, "What do you want for Christmas?" 2 weeks after that, Mom sent me a save the date for some vague family dinner in my honor next year. It was almost funny. All it took to get their attention was showing them I didn't need it anymore. And that's when the idea for the next birthday hit me. Bigger, bolder, even more unforgettable. This time, I wasn't just going to make them notice. I was going to make them wonder if they'd ever really known me at all. I spent the next 11 months quietly setting the stage. Not a word to my parents, not a single hint to my sister. Outwardly, I played it cool. Holidays came and went, and I politely accepted the small gestures they suddenly started making. A random gift card here, a thinking of you text there. It was transparent, of course. They weren't doing it because they'd changed. They were doing it because they were embarrassed. Meanwhile, I was planning the sequel to my rooftop bash. If last year's theme had been "Look What You Missed," this year's was pure extravagance. I rented a small ballroom at an old hotel downtown, the kind with chandeliers, velvet curtains, and a staircase made for dramatic entrances. I hired a live band, arranged an open bar, and booked a photo booth with ridiculous props. The guest list was even longer than before, and once again, not a single family member made the cut. Instead, I invited everyone who'd shown up for me over the past year. Friends, coworkers, neighbors, even my mail carrier, who'd slipped a birthday card into my box last time after seeing my social media post. And this time, I went all in on the visuals. I paid a videographer to capture the night like it was a wedding reception. Drone shots of the city skyline as guests arrived. Slow-motion clips of champagne being poured. Candid laughter, dancing, hugs. The night of, I stood at the top of that staircase in a midnight blue suit, gold tie, and a pair of shiny black boots that made me feel 10 feet tall. As the band played, I descended like I'd been waiting my whole life for this entrance. It was perfect. The evening was a blur of music, dancing, clinking glasses, and people telling me how much they loved being there. At midnight, the band struck up a jazzy version of "Happy Birthday," and the room sang loud enough to shake the crystal in the chandeliers. I blew out the candles on a towering cake and thought, "This is mine. I built this." The next morning, the photos and videos hit my socials. They spread fast. Apparently, when you look like you're living in a movie, people notice. Friends tagged themselves, shared clips, and suddenly the comments section was flooded again. My sister messaged first, "Wow, this is insane. You really didn't invite any family?" I replied with a single smiling emoji. Then Mom called. Straight to voicemail. Then Dad. Then Mom again. By the time I checked my phone that evening, I had a string of missed calls and texts. "Why are you doing this? We're your family. You're being cruel." Cruel. That was rich. So I posted one last video, a slow-motion shot of me laughing with friends, champagne in hand, with the caption, "Some families you're born into, others you create." Grateful for mine. By the end of the week, my parents had stopped calling. My sister sent one last text, "They're hurt, you know," and I just typed back, "Yeah, I know." And for the first time in my life, their hurt didn't feel like my responsibility. It felt like freedom.